Marvelous stories of her youth. Whenever I needed a particular book for school, and my mother didn't for some reason have the money to buy it, Granny would. She was very proud of my schoolwork. Also, whenever I was at Granny's, I would read Uncle Piet's and Aunt Bushy's school books, even though they were several standards ahead of me. They were now in standards 4 and 6, respectively. Granny had serious doubts about being able to see them go any further, for the cost of black education had risen dramatically, and her earnings from gardening had not. There was even talk that Aunt Bushy would have to leave school.
No.
I mean,
Well, obviously, yes, but no.
There was even talk that Aunt Bushy would have to leave school upon completing Standard 6 and look for a factory job, so she could help pay for Uncle Piet's school. One night afternoon, Granny returned from work very excited. I was sitting by the kitchen window memorizing a tribal poem for presentation at school when, as she came through the front door, she dropped the stack of old newspapers she was carrying on her dove-covered head and hobbled toward my mother, who was busy cleaning around the kitchen. Mujaji, he's agreed, he's finally agreed, Granny cried, throwing her long, bracelet-covered arms wide open to embrace my mother. Right. Really, was all my mother uttered as she leaped from the floor and threw herself into Granny's arms. Thank you. The two started dancing about the kitchen. Both then came to me where I was sitting, puzzled. Granny hugged me and kissed me, while my mother looked on, beaming with smiles. What's going on? I said, pulling away from Granny in bewilderment. Are you both mad? Glory to be God in the highest, Granny said almost out of breath. A miracle happened today, child, she added enigmatically. What miracle? I wrinkled my brow. In a flash, remembering that Granny had once said that it would be a miracle if she ever were to find some decent man to marry her, I said with an understanding smile, Congratulations, Granny. Who is the lucky man? Ryan, let's find a seat. That's not a seat. I know no one's got the Nutter Butters, but we're on page 277, Ryan.
Thanks.
Granny stared at me with baffled eyes. The mother interjected, laughing. No, silly, your grandma didn't get married. The miracle concerns you. I was about to ask for an explanation when Granny jumped in excitedly and said, Remember the games and books I'm always bringing you? Yes, what about them? You know about Mrs. Smith, don't you? Granny went on. I nodded. Well, some time ago, I asked her if I could bring you with me so she could see you. She agreed, but said that she had to get permission from her husband because it is uncommon for black children to be in white neighborhoods. Today, she's told me that he's also agreed. So next Tuesday, I'll be taking you with me. I'm not going, I declared. What? Granny cried. I said I'm not going, I repeated, casually going through the stack of newspapers and removing the comic sections. Of course you'll go, silly, my mother said, turning and facing her. I said impetuously, How can I go? How can I go? I can't afford to miss school on Tuesday. We have exams. I lied. Don't worry about school, my mother said. I'll get permission from the principal. It's very important that you go with your grandma. I don't want to go, I insisted. I don't want to have anything to do with white people. Granny shook her head mournfully and muttered, Lord, hear this foolish child. She stared at me as though she did not know me. I had wounded her feelings. I wished there was some way I could communicate to her the naked terror the sight of white people evoked in me. Some way to convince her that the last thing I wanted to do in this world was to set foot in the white world. Why are you doing this to me, child? Granny said at length in a quivering voice. Tears stood in her wrinkled eyes. You don't know how long I begged Mrs. Smith to let me bring you. You don't know what this means, do you, child? Don't you love me? Don't you love your grandma? Her voice sounded so hurt that for a minute I thought of giving in. I love you very much, Granny, I said with feeling. You're not the problem. I felt so guilty I couldn't go on. I grabbed several comic strips and headed out of doors, away from them all. But my mother, who had been standing alongside the door, reached out and grabbed my arm as I turned the doorknob. Wait just a minute, you ungrateful fool, she said in a deadly tone. Before you leave this house, I want to hear you tell your grandma I'll go with you next week. Either that or you leave this house for good. She meant it. Searching for a way out, I said, why do Granny's white people all of a sudden want to see me? What's so special about me? Why not someone else? George or Uncle Piet, for instance. Granny replied, because since I started working for them a year ago, I've been telling them what a smart grandson I have. That's why they've been giving you all those books, games, and toys. Now they finally agreed to see you in person. Why? Stop asking why, you fool, my mother said, her face working up in anger. Mrs. Smith's son is about your age. You know what that means? It means you'll get lots of hand-me-downs once they get to know you personally. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're always complaining about not having decent clothes to wear during Christmas, about not having books to read, yet here you are throwing away a chance to get all those things and more. Remember what I once told you about knocking at the doors of opportunity? Well, this time those doors are wide open and all you have to do is walk right in. Your mother is right, child, Granny said in support. Mrs. Smith's son gets so many new things every day that he doesn't know what to do with the old ones except throw them away. Don't throw away this opportunity, child, or you'll regret it the rest of your life. Over my dead body will he throw it away, Mother declared. I capitulated. But not before asking Granny to promise to be by my side at all times while we were in the white world. She agreed. She then lectured me on how to behave when among whites. Talk only when talked to. Wear a smile, preferably your whitest one, at all times. Say yes, madam, to Mrs. Smith, and yes, Bass, to Mr. Smith, and yes, master, to their son. That evening, my father gave permission that I could go. He added, ask the Bass if he's got any old clothes he wants to get rid of. I badly need underwear and socks. On Monday, the eve of the biggest day of my life, my mother went to the principal and told him that I would be absent from school the next day. That evening, I had the most thorough bath ever, more thorough than the one I had on my first day at school. Though by this time, teachers at school had whipped the saying, cleanliness is next to godliness in tea. I now washed my face regularly, trimmed my fingernails every week with my father's razor, kept my hair short, combed and free of dandruff and lice, and brushed my teeth each morning using my left index finger as a toothbrush, and ash from the brazier as toothpaste. Yeah. Real toothbrush and toothpaste were luxuries we couldn't afford. My mother insisted on scrubbing me herself. But I'm man enough to wash myself, I protested. You may be, she replied, but I'm not taking any chances. You're going to spend an entire day among white people, the cleanest people on earth. The last thing they need is a filthy black boy contaminating their home. This bar of white gooey soap will make you smell like fresh flowers, she added, smiling. I don't want to smell like flowers, I said, rubbing my eyes with suds. I'm not a girl. Now came the time to decide what to wear to look presentable in front of whites. The choice was easy. My Spears wardrobe took care of that. I had a shabby, tight-fitting khaki safari suit my parents had bought me 2 Christmases ago. My mother went next door and borrowed a pair of matching shoes. But the shoes were so big I had to stuff them with paper to be able to walk without leaving them behind. My father loaned me one of his 3 moth-eaten gaudy ties with a tongue so wide it spanned the width of my waist. So, you guys know what a tie looks like, right? It goes like this, and then kind of cuts in. So he's saying that it was so wide that it went all the way to his hips. So are you guys imagining this kid? He's in a safari suit, 2 years too small. He's got shoes that are too big, he's got paper in them, and he's got this nasty tie that's moppy. Okay? The 7 o'clock bus for blacks to Johannesburg was jam-packed with men and women on their way to the white world to work. A huge sign above the driver's booth read, authorized to carry only 65 seated passengers and 15 standing. But there may have been close to 100 perspiring people squeezed into the stuffy bus. People sat on top of one another, some were sandwiched in the narrow aisle between the rows of seats, and some crowded on the steps. I sat on Granny's lap in the middle of the bus by a large smudged window. As the bus droned past Alexander's boundaries, I glued my eyes to the window, anticipating my first look at the white world. What I saw made me think I had just made a quantum leap into another galaxy. I couldn't stop asking questions. What are those? Skyscrapers. Why are they retold in the sky? Because many white people live and work in them. Seconds later, wow, look at those nice houses, Granny. They're so big. Do many white people live and work there too? No, those are mansions. Each is owned by one family. By one family? I cried in disbelief. Each mansion occupied an area about 3 times that of the yard I lived in, yet the latter was home for over 20 families. Yes, Granny said matter-of-factly. Your grandpa, when he first came to Johannesburg, worked for one such family. The family was so rich they owned an airplane. Why are there so many cars in the white people's homes? Because they like to have many cars. Those people dress in white. What game are they playing? The men are playing cricket. Master Smith plays that too. The women are playing tennis. Mrs. Smith plays it too on Tuesday and Thursday. So what's his point of naming all these things? What's his literary purpose, his rhetorical purpose of listing all those things like that? You gotta do that.
Maybe to let the reader know how different it is.
Yeah, by listing those things, right, he's calling to attention all the things that he's never seen. Like a skyscraper, really? You've never seen a building? So he's pointing out the differences between white and black South Africa. Suddenly the bus screeched to a halt and people crashed into each other. I was thrown into the back of the wooden seat in front of me. Smarting, I asked, why did the bus suddenly stop? I didn't see any robots or streetlights. Look over there, Granny pointed. White school children were crossing the road. I gazed through the window and for the first time in my life saw white school children. I scrutinized them for any differences from black school children aside from color. They were like little mannequins. Their boys were neatly dressed in snow-white shirts, blazers with badges, preppy caps with badges, ties matching the badges, shiny black and brown shoes, worsted knee-high socks. Are they checking the office footage? Okay, go check it. A few of the girls had pigtails. On the back of each boy and girl was slung a school bag, and each frail, milky white arm had a wristwatch on it. It suddenly struck me that we didn't even own a clock. We had to rely on clocks for time. The white school children were filing out of a large red brick building with many large windows, in front of which were beds of multicolored flowers. A tall black man wearing a traffic uniform, a whistle between his thick lips, stood in the middle of the paved road. One hand raised to stop traffic, the other holding a sign that read in English and Afrikaans, Children crossing stop, Kinders stap oor. None of this orderly and safe crossing of the street ever took place at my school. We had to dash across. The red brick building stood on a vast tract of land with immaculate lawns, athletic fields, swings, merry-go-rounds, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, tennis courts, and rows of brightly leafed trees. In the driveway leading to the entrance of the building, scores of yellow school buses were parked. Not even the best of tribal schools in Alexandria, in the whole of South Africa, came close to having such magnificent facilities. At our school, we didn't even have a school bus. Oh, how I envied the white school children, how I longed to attend schools like theirs. Do you see again how he's pointing out the differences? That's a rhetorical device, it's a literary purpose. Minutes after all the white school children were safely across, traffic moved. At the next bus stop, we got off and crossed the street when the robot flashed green. As we walked along the pavement, headed for Granny's workplace, I clutched her long dress, afraid of letting go. Lest I be swallowed by the tremendous din of cars zooming up and down and honking in the busy streets, I began feeling dizzy as my eyes darted from one wonder to the next. There were so many new and fantastic things around me that I walked as if in a dream. As we continued down the road, I became increasingly conscious of the curious looks white people gave us, as if we were a pair of escaped monkeys. Occasionally, Granny and I had to jump off the pavement to make way for madams and their poodles, and English toy spaniels. By constantly throwing my eyes sideways, I accidentally bumped into a park meter. We went up a side street. There is Mrs. Smith's house, Granny remarked as she led me up a long driveway of a beautiful villa-type house surrounded by a well-manicured lawn with several beds of colorful, sweet-smelling flowers and rose bushes. We went to a steel gate in the back of the yard where Granny rang a bell. "I'm here, madam," she shouted through the gate. Immediately, a dog started barking from within. I trembled. Granny calmed me. A door creaked open and a high-pitched woman's voice called out, "I'm coming, Ellen." "Quiet, Buster, you naughty dog. It's Ellen." The barking ceased. Presently, the gate clicked open, and there appeared a short, slender white woman with silver hair and slightly drooping shoulders. She wore white slacks, a white sweater, white shoes, and a white visor. Why would he be so scared of the dog? He has seen one. What's his only? Yes, the only dogs he's seen are the ones that the Perry Irvin the police use. And remember, he had heard stories of them eating people alive. So now this lady has one in her house, and he thinks it's going to eat him. "I was just getting ready to leave for tennis," she said to Granny. She had not yet seen me. "Madam, guess who I have with me today?" Granny said with the widest smile. I appeared like a jack-in-the-box. "Oh my, you finally brought him with you," Mrs. Smith exclaimed. Breaking into a wide smile, revealing gleaming teeth, several of which were made of gold, she continued, "My, what a big lad he is! What small ears!" touching him playfully. "Is he really your grandson, Ellen?" The warmth in her voice somehow reduced my fears of hers. Her eyes shone with the same gentleness of the Catholic sisters at the clinic. "Yes, madam," Granny said proudly. "This is the one I've been telling you about. This is the one who will someday go to university like Master Clyde, and took care of me." "I believe you, Ellen," said Mrs. Smith. "He looks like a very smart pickaninny." Turning to me, she asked, "How old are you?" "11, madam, 11," I said, with so wide a smile I thought my jaws would lock. Remember, he was told to smile, so the whole time he was just like cheesing so hard. "He's a year younger than Master Clyde," Granny said, "though the master is much bigger." "A little chubby, you mean," Mrs. Smith said with a smile. "If you knew how much the little master eats, Ellen, I'm afraid he'll soon turn into a piglet. Sometimes I regret not having had another child. With a sibling, Master Clyde might have turned out differently. As it is, he's so spoiled as an only child." Pickaninny has one brother and 3 sisters, Granny said of me, and the 5th one is on the way. Holy children. My God, what a large family, Mrs. Smith exclaimed. What's the Pickaninny's name? Using pidgin English, I proceeded not only to give my name and surname, but also my grade in school, home address, tribal affiliation, name of school, principal, and teacher, all in a feverish attempt to justify Granny's label of me as a smart one. Mrs. Smith was astounded. What a clever Pickaninny. She turned to a tall, lean black man with an expressionless face and slightly stooping shoulders, dressed in housekeeper's livery, khaki shirt and pants, who had just emerged from the house and who led a poodle on a leash and said, Did you hear that, Absalom? Bantu or black children are smart. Soon they'll be running the country. Absalom simply tortured out a grin and took the poodle for a walk after receiving instructions to bring brandy, whiskey, wine, and gin from the bottle store. Granny remarked that I was a clever Pickaninny because of all the toys, games, and comic books I had received from Master Clyde. Mrs. Smith seemed extremely pleased to hear that. Before Mrs. Smith left for tennis, she said, Ellen, your breakfast is near the washing machine in the garage. I'll be back sometime this afternoon. Please see to it that the flowers near the pool are watered and that the rose bushes near the front of the gate are trimmed. After a breakfast of coffee and peanut butter and jam sandwiches, Granny took out her gardening tools from the shed and we started working. As the 2 of us went about the large yard, I raked leaves and watered the flowers. Granny weeded the lawn. Mrs. Smith's neighbor's children kept on casting curious glances over the fence. From the way they looked at me, it seemed that they were seeing a black child for the first time in their lives. At midday, despite the scorching sun, Granny seemed indefatigable, went about with impressive skill trimming the rose bushes as we talked about trees and flowers and how best to cultivate them. Someday I'll build a house as big and beautiful as Mrs. Smith's, I said to Granny, and a garden just as big and beautiful. Then I'll be your gardener, Granny said with a smile. Toward early afternoon, Mrs. Smith returned. She called me to the car to remove several shopping bags from the back seat. She took her tennis rackets, closed the doors, then sighed, Phew, what a tiring day. Don't ever play tennis, she said to me. It's a killer. What's tennis, madam? I said. You don't know tennis, she exclaimed. What sports do you play? Soccer, madam. Oh, that dangerous sport. Soccer is too rough. You should try tennis someday. It's a gentleman's sport. Wouldn't you like to be a gentleman? I would like to be a gentleman, madam, I replied, even though I hadn't the faintest idea what constituted a gentleman. Do you have tennis courts in Alexandria? Yes, madam. The stadium where I played soccer was adjacent to 4 ramshackle sand courts, used primarily by kitchen girls and kitchen boys on their day off. Then I'll see if I can find an old bracket for you, she said. As we were talking, a busload of white school children stopped in front of the house, and a young boy with a mop of rebellious brown hair alighted and ran up the driveway toward Mrs. Smith. After giving her a kiss, he turned and demanded, Who is he, mother? That's Ellen's grandson, the one you've been giving all those comic books and toys to. What is he doing here? He's visiting us. What for? I don't want him here. Why not, Clyde? Mrs. Smith said. He's a nice Pickaninny. Ellen is always nice to you, isn't she? The boy nodded with pursed lips. Now be nice to her grandson. Now run along inside and Absalom will show you the things I bought you today. Did you get my new bicycle and roller skates? Yes, they'll be delivered Saturday. Now run in and change and have something to eat. Then maybe you can play with Pickaninny. I don't play with Cappers, the white boy declared. At school, they say we shouldn't. Watch your filthy mouth, Clyde, Mrs. Smith said, flushing crimson. I thought I told you a million times to leave all that rubbish about Cappers in the classroom. Ellen's people are not Cappers, you hear, they're Bantus. Now go in and do as I told you. Turning to Granny, pruning a rosebush nearby, Mrs. Smith said in a voice of someone fighting a losing battle. You know, Ellen, I simply don't understand why those damn uncivilized voters from Pretoria teach children such things. What future does this country have if this goes on? Okay, what is shocking about those past 2 paragraphs? Yeah.
The mother thinks that it's pretty covered. They're teaching my kids to not.
What did you say? What? I honestly didn't hear it.
Retarded?
Okay, different sorts of words. It's really stupid, maybe. So it's the mother finds it repulsive that they're teaching this in schools, right? What else is shocking? Failure, so.
Clyde is so, against.
Yes. Yeah, like the mother was refused so different. Alex? Contact. Yes. Silly one.
Yeah, I think maybe Dad might be a little bit more racist than the mom, so Clyde was kind of.
Well, it also says, she says, what does it say? I don't play with cappers. At school, they say we shouldn't. And then the grandma says, you know, Ellen, I simply don't understand why this damn uncivilized Boer from Pretoria teach children such things. What future does this country have if this goes on? So who is telling him? Who's giving him the ideas about black people and black kids? The school. Okay.
What's the book about?
She's a gardener. So the school is literally facilitating their thinking. They're putting it into their heads that of the whites and Columbus's thoughts. I agree, my Kulu, madam, Granny said, wiping her sweaty brow with her forearm. All children, black and white, are God's children, madam. The preacher at my church tells us the Bible says so. Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not. For of such is the kingdom of heaven, the Bible says. Is that not so, madam? Do you believe in the words of the Bible, madam? I'm afraid you're right, Ellen, Mrs. Smith said, somewhat touched. Yes, I do believe in the Bible. That's why I cannot accept the laws of this country. We white people are hypocrites. We call ourselves Christians, yet our deeds make the devil look like a saint. I sometimes wish I hadn't left England. I was struck by the openness of the discussion between Granny and Mrs. Smith. You are not like most white people I've worked for, madam, Granny said. Master and you are kind toward our people. You treat us like human beings. Mrs. Smith didn't answer. She hurried back indoors. Shortly thereafter, Clyde emerged in a pair of denims and a t-shirt advertising a South African rock group. He called out to me, come here, Pickaninny. My mother says I should show you around. I went. I followed him around as he showed me all the things his parents regularly bought him. Toys, bicycles, go-karts, pinball machines, ping-pong tables, electric trains. I only half listened. My mind was preoccupied with comparing my situation with his. I couldn't understand why he and his people had to have all the luxuries money could buy, while I and my people lived in abject poverty. Were they better than we? I could not find the answers. Yet I felt there was something wrong about white people having everything and black people nothing.
Wait, were the white people allowed to go in Alexandria?
They wanted me to.
Yeah, there was no point for them to. The only reason they would is like,
Just by Christianity.
yeah, if they were working at a clinic, or they were missionaries, or they were peri-urban. But like Mrs. Smith would never wander into Alexandria, right? You had to like take a bus there for them. We finally came to Clyde's playroom. The room was roughly the size of our house, and was elaborately decorated with posters, pennants of various white soccer and cricket teams, rock stars, and photographs of Clyde in various stages of development. But what arrested my attention were the stacks of comic books on the floor and the shelves and shelves of books. Never had I seen that many books in my life. Even our school, with a student population of over 2,000, did not have half as many books. I was dazed. Sensing that I was in awe of his magnificent library, Clyde said, do you have this many books in your playroom? I don't have a playroom. You don't have a playroom? He said, bug-eyed. Can you read it? He smiled sinisterly. Our boy Absalom can't, and he says black children aren't taught much English at school. I can read a little English, I said. I doubt if you can read any of my books. Here, read. He ordered, pulling one out of the shelves. The book was thick, looked formidable. I nervously opened a page, toiled through a couple lines, encountering long words. I could not pronounce, let alone understand their meaning. Shaking my head in embarrassment, I handed the book back. I can't read this type of English. Then you must be retarded, Clyde laughed. Though he might have meant it in jest, my pride was deeply wounded. This book is by William Shakespeare, he went on, waving it in my face. The greatest English writer that ever lived. I could read it from cover to cover when I was half your age. But I don't blame you if you can't. My teacher tells us that Kaffirs can't read, speak, or write English like white people because they have smaller brains, which are already full of tribal things. My teachers say you're not people like us because you belong to a jungle civilization. That's why you can't live or go to school with us, but can only be our servants. Whoa! Who told him all this stuff? His teacher. How fun is this systemic racism and oppression, right? You guys want to know something funny, too? McClatchy, which is a high school in Sacramento, they had a teacher get fired last year because he let a student do a science project analyzing whether black brains were in fact smaller than white. In 2018, a teacher let a student actively call out whether or not an African American's brain was smaller and less intelligent. Can you believe that?
not, like, it's not surprising.
Because ignorance still exists, right?
Yeah, and like, there's always be people who have that mindset, like, no matter
The
what.
teacher got fired.
Teacher got fired. Because as a teacher, one of the jobs you have to abide to is you have to create a safe learning environment for every student. So if you have African American students in that room, did he create a safe learning environment?
No.
Absolutely not. Alright. Stop saying that rubbish, you naughty boy, Mrs. Smith said angrily as she entered the room just in time to catch the tail end of her son's knowledge of black people's intelligence as postulated by the doctrine of apartheid. So, apartheid, that's part of the legislation, right, is that we have to separate because they are not as smart as us. How many times have I told you that what your teachers say about black people is not true? What do you know, Mama? Clyde retorted impudently. You're not a teacher. Besides, there are textbooks where it's so written. Still, it's not true, insisted Mrs. Smith. Everything that's in your books is not necessarily true, especially your history books about this country. Changing the subject, she said, show him your easy books and then get your things ready so I can drive you over to your friend's birthday party. Clyde quickly ran down his long list of easy books. The Three Musketeers, Treasure Island, David Copperfield, the Hardy Boy series, the Sherlock Holmes series, Tom Sawyer, Robinson Crusoe, the Swiss Family Robinson, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Black Beauty, A Tale of Two Cities, and so on. Oh, how I envied Clyde's collection of books. I would have given my life to own just a handful. The remark that black people had smaller brains and were thus incapable of reading, speaking, or writing English like white people had so wounded my ego that I vowed that whatever the cost, I would master English, that I would not rest till I could read, write, and speak it just like any white man, if not better. Finally, I had something to aspire to. Back with Granny, I told her to be on the lookout whenever Mrs. Smith junked any books. At the end of the day, as Granny and I prepared to leave, I was given a small box by Mrs. Smith. It's from Clyde, she said. He's sorry that he treated you badly. He's promised not to do it again. I'll see to it he keeps his promise. Come and help Ellen in the garden whenever you can. That way you'll earn some pocket money. The box contained a couple shirts, pants, and jerseys. Underneath the articles of clothing was a copy of Treasure Island.
Wait, do they live with their dad anymore now?
Yes. So remember, like, even though she ran away, the tribal laws stated that she had to come back, but could not come back until he accepted them. What? You have a ghost printer. Fascinating.
There's not like a lot of chapters, there's not like a chapter like or the mom.
Yes. So, but because he mentioned that like the tribal law was that he had to accept her back. It's not very clear as to when she came back. But they just said that she's pregnant with the 5th child, right?
But it could not be.
Huh?
If you could like not be it.
If that were true, she could get killed. She's property, right? She steps out on him. All right, chapter 31.
So he bought her.
Yeah, he basically, the family paid him. Other way around. He paid their family for her, right? Like, remember we talked about the dowry? Yes.
She's literally his
Right.
property.
Yes.
And men on other men.
What?
Like,
You know? Okay.
are you talking about slavery?
No.
Like, are you that what
No,
you're
I
talking
mean, like,
about? Like in marriage?
Yeah.
I don't think homosexuality
I don't think that was accepted.
This is such a topic that I'm not familiar on, and I don't know where to go with your question. I don't know. I don't know the laws. I mean, in certain cultures, like we're in a culture that's so unfamiliar to our own, right? That I don't know what to tell you. I don't have the answer for that.
What their white slaves do?
Huh?
What their white slaves do?
Like worldwide
Just like, yeah.
in South Africa, I don't know. I don't know much history of it. I know.
I thought that if it
I'm
white,
not answer your question either.
thought if a white committed like bad enough crime, they would be exiled and enslaved. Also, I remember that.
It's happened in history, yes, but I don't know at what time period. Like what we're reading, no, I don't think so. But even like today, you have kids who are enslaved, right?
Yeah.
So like it still exists. All right. So chapter 31, we're on page 292. Justin, you ready? To learn to express my thoughts and feelings effectively in English became my main goal in life. I saw command of the English language as the crucial key with which to unlock doors leading into that wonderful world of books revealed to me through the reading of Robert Louis Stevenson's gripping tale of buried treasure, Mutiny on High Seas, One-Legged Seaman, and the old sea song that I could recite even in my dreams. 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo-ho, yo-ho, and a bottle of rum. My heart ached to explore more such worlds, to live in the imagination in much the same way as I lived the folk tales of my mother and my grandmother. I reasoned that if I somehow kept improving my English and ingratiated Mrs. Smith by the fact that possibly she would give me more books like Treasure Island, each time Granny took me along. Alas, such trips were few and far between. I could not afford to skip school regularly, and besides, each trip did not yield a book, but I clung to my dream. A million times I wondered why the sparse library at my school did not carry books like Treasure Island, why most of the books we read had tribal points of view. I would ask teachers and would be told that under the Bantu education law, black children were supposed to acquire a solid foundation in tribal life, which would prepare them for a productive future in their respective homelands. In this way, the dream of Dr. Verwoerd, Prime Minister of South Africa and the architect of Bantu education, would be realized, for he insisted that the native child must be taught subjects which will enable him to work with and among his own people. Therefore, there is no use misleading him by showing him the green pastures of European society, in which he is not allowed to graze. Bantu education should not be used to create imitation whites. Okay, so in that section, he is saying that the whole point behind Bantu education is to prepare these kids for life on the tribal reserves. What is ironic about that? What's going on in the tribal reserves?
They're
belonging to hope and freedom.
There's no hope and freedom. Okay, what else? Yeah. They're coming back to work because there's nothing there, right? They can't even slaughter their own animals because the animals are have malnutrition, right? So to say, we're going to prepare you for life in the tribal reserves, they're effectively trying to kick the Africans out of Johannesburg and the cities who are tribal reserves to live for nothing, right? They're further separating the races. How I cursed Dr. Verwoerd and his law for prescribing how I should feel and think, I started looking toward the Smiths to provide me with the books about a different reality. Each day, Granny came back from work around 5 in the afternoon. I would be the first to meet her at the gate, always with the same question. Any books for me today? Many times there weren't any. Unable to read new English books on a regular basis, I reread the ones I had over and over again till the pages became dog-eared. With each reading, each book took on new life, exposed new angles to the story, with the result that I was never bored. My bleak vocabulary did not diminish my enthusiasm for reading. I constantly borrowed Mr. Brown's pocket-sized dictionary to look up meanings of words and would memorize them like arithmetic tables and write them in a small notebook. Sometimes I would read the dictionary. My pronunciation was appalling, but I had no way of finding out. I was amazed at the number of words in the English language, at the fact that a word could have different shades of meaning, or that certain words looked and sounded alike and yet differed greatly in meaning. Would I ever be able to learn all of that? At the same time, I was discovering the richness of the English language. I began imitating how white people talked, in the hope of learning proper pronunciation. My efforts were often hilarious, but my determination increased with failure. I set myself the goal of learning at least 2 English words a day. At this time, Uncle Pietrus, on my father's side, had moved into our yard. A bachelor with some education, he read the World and the black edition of the Star every day. Each evening I would go to his shack to borrow the 2 papers. I often found him through with chores, and the 2 of us would sit and discuss the mainstay of black news, crime, sports, mainly boxing and soccer, murder stories, the staggering statistics and the gruesome ways through which blacks killed blacks, and the latest police raids and shebeen sleuths. On Mondays and Fridays, we filled out jackpots, which were crossword puzzles that paid cash prizes to winners. We never won anything, but my vocabulary benefited from the exercise. I began looking for opportunities to use my improved vocabulary in conversation, but such opportunities were rare. All talk, all teaching, all thinking for that matter, at my school was in Sangha. The only time I encountered English was during the English period, one of the shortest in school, devoted mainly to honing servanthood English. For lack of practice, I soon forgot many of the words and had to relearn them, only to forget them again, only to relearn them. I refused to quit. My love for reading removed me from the streets and curtailed my involvement in gangs. This infuriated the leaders of my gang, the 13th Avenue Tomahawks. Friends within me warned that there was a plot afoot to teach me a lesson for not showing up at the gang's fights. The 13th Avenue Tomahawks fought just about every week against this or that street's gang for reasons ranging from territorial disputes to harassment of each other's girlfriends. One weekday afternoon, while I was splitting wood in front of our house, the leader of the 13th Avenue Tomahawks, a 16-year-old delinquent named Jarvis, whose claim to notoriety was that he once stabbed a rival to death over a girl he later made pregnant and dumped, and several of his henchmen approached me. The Tomahawks were in the middle of a protracted two-pronged war against rival gangs, the Mongols from 16th Avenue and the Dirty Dozen from 11th Avenue. "Are you still one of us?" Jarvis demanded, in a tone suggesting that he normally let his knife do the talking, but he was doing me a favor by giving me a chance to exonerate myself. My heart was no longer into gangs, but I replied, "Yes." "Then why haven't you been in any of our recent fights?" "I've been too busy." "So busy you neglect your gang duties?" he sneered. "I've had too much schoolwork." "Oh, too much schoolwork, huh?" he said, doffing his worn-out beret in mock salute. "Excuse us for bothering you, Professor. We didn't know you were that busy." At this, his cohorts, who were smoking several bottles of glue, laughed. I kept silent, sensing that Jarvis was provoking me into saying something that might give him an excuse to stab me. I bore the stream of filth he and his cohorts spewed at me, for I knew that it was better to act a coward and live than to act a hero and end up 6 feet under. "What have you to say, you wimp?" Jarvis sneered. "Will you fight, or will you hide behind your mama's apron like a little girl?" "I'll fight the next fight," I said. "Better be there," Jarvis said, "if you know what's good for you." The group left, and I sank into despair. Just when things were beginning to turn around in my life, this had to happen. The next fight was on Saturday. It was a hot day, and the Tomahawks were lost in fierce combat against the Mongols. Traffic was at a standstill as the two gangs went at each other with every type of weapon imaginable. Tomahawks, machetes, bottles, rocks, daggers, slingshots, crowbars. I was in the middle row of the tomahawk formation, slingshot in hand. I had been grazed several times by rocks and bottles that fought on. Mothers called their sons homes, but we paid no heed. Amidst whistling, yelling, and cursing, something whizzed past me, barely missed my head, but struck a barrel-chested 13-year-old boy to my left. He clutched his face and shrieked, "The bastards, they've hurt my eye." A couple of us rushed to see his side. Someone said, "Let go of your face and let's see." He removed his bloody hand from his face. His right eye had been completely gouged out by a stone from a slingshot. Blood spurted out from the socket down his cheeks like giant teardrops. There were no cars nearby, no phones, no means of getting him to the clinic. He might bleed to death, and he would be one-eyed for the rest of his life. Those thoughts numbed me. Then and there, I decided to quit the gang permanently. On the way home, voices kept ringing in my head. Why do you fight when you don't want to? It could easily have been you with the gouged eye. Are you willing to pay such a price for conformity? Leave the gang, leave it now, while you still have both eyes and your life. Leave it now and be called a whip for the rest of your life. If need be, but do not need needlessly, recklessly, and foolishly jeopardize your future. I never again fought for any gang. My leaving the gang, however, brought hostility and harassment. Jarvis warned me that my days were numbered, but I was resolved on quitting. Now an outcast and a marked man, I seldom traveled alone at night. During the day, I promptly came home after school and spent the rest of the day doing homework, reading, and helping around the house. Occasionally, I would go out and play soccer with the boys who did not belong to gangs. My parents had known all along that I was involved with gangs and had said nothing, but when the harassment increased, I decided to tell them that I had quit gang life. My mother, when she heard the full story behind my decision, heaved a deep sigh of relief and said, "You had two paths to choose from, just like every black boy in Alexandria, to become a Satsi or not to become a Satsi. You chose the difficult way out. From now on, the going will be rough, for your Satsi friends will try everything to make you change your mind. I hope you will remain firm in your decision. If you do, chances are you'll live to be old enough not to regret it." My father, in a typical remark, said, "Watch out, they don't kill you." He paused, then added, "Maybe it's about time I sent you to a school back in the homelands, where they'll make a warrior out of you." He's talking about his friends being 16.
It's like 14.
Yeah, so he's somewhere in between.
He doesn't have a pass yet, though, so it's not 16.
Yeah, he's definitely not 16. We don't see him be 16 until part 3. Alright. After severing my ties with gangs, I had more time for my studies and books. I continued my above-average work and was soon promoted to Standard 4 with the highest marks in the class. Teachers began forecasting great things for me. Some said that I had the brains to become a doctor. But all these predictions depended upon one thing: money. I was fast arriving at the point where many a black child, eager to continue learning, had to drop out because parents could not afford school fees, books, and uniforms. I tried not to dwell on it. Learn as much as you can while the opportunity is still there, became my motto. Through tribal indoctrination, it was still the focus of our curriculum at Standard 4. A few new and challenging subjects were introduced. In literature, we read a Sangha translation from Booker T. Washington's autobiography, Up from Slavery. Teachers exhorted us to be like him, to lift ourselves from poverty by our bootstraps. We were required to memorize passages from the books, including the Atlanta Exposition Address. For some reason, I never quite liked the book. It had an unsettling, familiar ring to it. But that was not the case with Sangha translations of Greek and Roman mythology. I was drawn to the stories of Atalanta, Philemon, and Bacchus, Odysseus and the Trojan War, Jason and the quest for the Golden Fleece. Admittedly, they resembled much of African folklore, but they had a freshness that appealed to my imagination. I regularly chose to read them as prose during exams. My animated orations consistently scored high marks. I soon became one of the best prose and poetry readers in school, and would often get picked to represent the school when white inspectors came to assess our progress. Hold on, guys, sorry. Another thing that caused a stir among teachers and students was my peculiar way of writing. I wrote upside down, literally. When I first learned how to write in substandard A, I found it natural to write upside down, for it seemed that somehow my brain and left hand could only coordinate when I wrote upside down. To me, writing this way was the most normal thing. Yet those who saw me do it shook their heads in disbelief and remarked that they had never seen anyone who wrote like me. After a dozen or so trips to the white world, I began to feel somewhat comfortable amid the sea of white faces. There were still remnants of my childhood dread of white people somewhere in the recesses of my mind, but nothing major happened to rekindle it. On the contrary, the Smiths' kind treatment of me each time I visited them, though in most ways paternalistic, did much to alleviate the fear, and I began to naively assume that maybe white people weren't all that bad after all. That's foreshadowing, right? But one day something happened to me to cause me to think twice before declaring white terror more the fantasy of movies than the reality of day-to-day living. It was a Saturday, and Granny took me along to her other gardening job in Pretoria, the capital of apartheid, because she needed help. Thinking that this was another way of getting books, I eagerly accompanied her. We spent the day doing the usual, raking leaves, pruning bushes, watering flowers, and weeding the lawn. I washed cars, swept driveways, and polished the Bass's shoes. At 4, dead tired, we left for the bus stop about a mile away. As we waited for the bus to Alexandra, Granny untied a rag from her waist in which she kept money and said, "Wait here, child. I'm going to the store across the street to get some change. These black drivers may leave us if we don't have the proper change. Be on the lookout for the bus. If it comes while I'm still away, kindly ask the driver to wait. Don't wander away from here or you'll end up in trouble." I understood well what she meant by trouble. It being a sunny Saturday afternoon, white people milled all over the place, walking in and out of boutiques, in and out of flower shops, in and out of hotels, in and out of department stores, in and out of Mercedes-Benzes, Rolls-Royces, and other expensive cars, in and out of tennis courts, in and out of houses and flats, and in but never out of my consciousness. Granny hobbled across the street, exhausted by the day's work. I sat on the bundle of newspapers, took out a comic book from my knapsack, and buried it in the I had been reading for some time, when I heard a bus screech to a halt not too far from where I sat. Dropping the comic book, I rushed to the door so I could tell the driver to wait for Granny, who was waving vigorously at me from across the street, yelling something I couldn't quite make out. Lifting my head up as I came up the steps, I saw that I was in a white bus. I froze. My presence on the bus so startled several white old ladies who were about to disembark that they fled to the back. Vutsek, which means invective commonly hurled at dogs. Off this bus, Capper, thundered the red-necked white driver. Don't you see this is a white bus? Realizing the tragic mistake I had committed, I tried to fly off the bus, but I could not. I thought I was in some kind of nightmare, and the fact that I had thought white people never rode buses because of all the cars they had made everything the more unreal. But reality came, and the venom the white bus driver was spitting as he reached for the side door to come after me. I said, "Get off the bloody bus, Capper." I shut my eyes. I felt a pair of cold hands clutch my neck and yank me off the bus. I tumbled down the steps and landed on the concrete pavement. I must have prayed 1,000,000 times. Thinking that any time I would be kicked in the face by the white bus driver, I started begging for mercy. "Sorry, me boss," I whimpered. "Sorry, me boss. We make a big mistake. Forgive me boss. This Capper did not know bus for white people." All this time, my eyes were shut. Suddenly, I heard, "He's my pickaninny boss. I'm not at fault." It was Granny's voice. I opened my eyes to find her standing behind me, facing the white bus driver who was in front of me. Apparently, it was she who had jerked me off the bus. "He's harmless, me boss," Granny went on in the most groveling of voices. "He no caused no trouble. Me to blame. Me boss. Me left him alone." "Never mind who's to blame," the white driver said hotly. "Why do you let him get into the wrong buses? You know I could have you both arrested for it." "He no, me boss. He no. He only no child." "What do you mean he doesn't know?" the white bus driver returned. "Don't you teach Capper children anything about the laws?" "He can't learn, me boss," Granny said dramatically. "Low pickaninny, low mal," which means the pickaninny is deranged, my lord. Granny gestured with her hands to indicate that mine was not a normal insanity. She then shoved me aside and, to my moral horror, began wiping her dress the steps where I had trodden. This appeased the white bus driver, for after unleashing a tirade of how stupid and uncivilized black people were, he returned to the bus and drove off. Granny dragged me. I was in some sort of stupor by the neck back to the black bus stop. So, because he walked onto the bus, the grandmother took her dress and began cleaning the steps he had stepped on. Okay. "What do you mean climbing into white people's buses, man?" She shook with rage. "Do you want to get us killed?" "I didn't know it was the white people's bus," I said contritely. "You black liar," Granny exploded. "What do you mean you didn't know? Haven't you got eyes to see?" "Granny, I swear I didn't know. I had never seen white people riding buses before, so when I heard this bus coming, I thought it was ours." "Don't lie to me," she shook a finger in my face. "Can't you tell a black bus when you see one? Are you colorblind, or have you really gone mad? It must be all those books you've been reading. You're always reading. I promise it won't happen again." "If that's how you're going to behave each time you're among white people," Granny continued her verbal fusillade, "then this is the last trip you'll ever make with me. You know that had that white bus driver not been kind, we would now be in number 4. You know that." "But Granny, I only stood on the steps," I said. "I would have understood had I sat on any seat." "Shut up, you black imp," Granny screamed. "Shut up before I make you. You're always doing things you shouldn't be doing. That's your nature and you know it. You can get away with your bad behavior in Alexandria among black people, but not here. This is the white world." I remained silent, wondering whether I had underestimated the enormity of my crime of standing on the steps of a white bus. Were the poor white passengers going to die as a result? After a long pause, during which she calmed down, Granny said, "Forgive me for the outburst, child, but what you did was no small thing in the eyes of white people and the law. There's something you ought to know about how things are in this country. Something your mama, I see, has not told you yet. Black and white people live apart, very much apart. That you already know. What you may not know is that they've always been apart and will always be apart. That's what apartheid means. White people want it that way, and they've created all sorts of laws and have the guns to keep it that way. We live in our world," she continued, after taking a pinch of snuff and loading it under her tongue, "and white people live in their world. We are their servants. They're our masters. Our people fought hard to change things, but each time the white man always won. He has all the guns. Maybe another generation of black people will come which will defeat the white man, despite his many guns. But for now, he says how things should be, and we have to obey. Do you see those 2 things over there?" Granny pointed across the street. "Yes, Granny, they're phone boxes." "That's right," she affirmed, "but they are not just phone boxes. One is a black phone box, the other is a white phone box. Don't forget that. And for as long as I've been working with white people, and God knows I've been working with them for centuries, I've never seen a black person in his right mind go into the wrong one. might be a matter of life and death, and still he wouldn't. Even blind people know which is which. Which one is for black people, Granny? I asked, somewhat confused, for the two phone booths were exactly the same in all respects. Color, size, and shape. I don't know which is which, Granny groped for words, but there's always a sign on each door to tell which race is allowed to use which phone. As she said this, it struck me that she could not read, like millions of other blacks who worked for whites. How did they function normally in a world totally ruled by science? Thus my consciousness was awakened to the pervasiveness of petty apartheid, and everywhere I went in the white world, I was met by visible and invisible guards of racial segregation. Overtly the guards, larger than life signs that read, European only, non-European only, whites only, non-whites only, slegs blancs, slegs ni blancs, greeted me, and led me as a blind man would be led to the door I should enter through, the elevator I should ride in, the water fountain I should drink from, the park bench I should sit on, the bus I should ride in, the lavatory I should piss in. The invisible guards, however, did not greet me as conspicuously to orient me about my place in life. Instead, remarks such as, "You're in the wrong place, Capper. We don't serve your color here, Capper. Who do you think you are, Capper? Are you mad, Capper?" Told me it was still the guards of Jim Crow talking. Because the guards of segregation were everywhere in the white world, yet I saw black people who unwittingly disobeyed them, cursed, beaten, or thrown them in jail, I became increasingly self-conscious with each step I took. Through a school friend, I landed a job selling newspapers after school, plus Saturday and Sunday from morning till noon. I liked the job partly because I made extra income to help finance my schooling, and partly because I got to read well-written newspapers like The Star, the Rand Daily Mail, the Sunday Times, and the Sunday Express on a regular basis. I was now in Standard 6, my last year of primary school. Combining my modest income as a newspaper boy with what I made from reading and writing letters for migrant workers, I could now afford to go on some of the annual educational school trips to interesting places in the white world. Yeah.
I'm confused on what's happening right now. Like what happened with the newspaper? Is he selling newspapers now?
Yes. So he just said that he landed a job selling newspapers, right? And he gets to read all these things. So now he says, combining my modest income as a newspaper boy with what I made from reading and writing letters. Remember, he still is reading and writing letters for the migrant farm workers from their homelands. I could now afford to go to some of the annual educational school trips. So, you know, like, if there's a field trip at school, you guys get to go. Not in Bantu education, they have to pay. So if they want to go somewhere on a field trip, they have to pay their way. So he's saying, now I get to go on these trips. And so, one such trip was the Johannesburg Zoo. As with everything of worth, the zoo is primarily for whites, and groups of blacks had to apply for special permits to visit. After the principal received the permit, Flora and I paid to go, along with half the school. One Tuesday morning, 400 excited school children were packed like sardines inside 3 buses. So happy were we that as the buses left Alexandria, we began chanting and stomping our feet. It was not every day that sons and daughters of Africa got to see animals which their ancestors were keepers of. Do you guys sense the sarcasm? I'll read that line again. He says, so happy were we that as the buses left Alexandria, we began chanting and stomping our feet. It was not every day that sons and daughters of Africa got to see animals which their ancestors were keepers of. Okay, so he's pointing out that they are Africans, right? It's their homeland where all these amazing animals are that their ancestors kept, right? But they never get to see them because of apartheid. As we entered the white world, teachers attempted to keep the noise level down, but many of us, aware that we were among people who loved peace and quiet, shouted and stomped our feet the more. Some of us even stuck our heads out and hollered at stupefied white passersby. What an effect this had on people living on borrowed time. Bewildered white women scuttled indoors and bolted doors, simultaneously unleashing vicious dogs to patrol yards, seemingly misconstruing the busloads of black boys and girls as a prelude to a black invasion. The zoo gatekeeper was a short white man with a fat face. Beaming, he told us that the zoo was all ours for the day because whites seldom came in great numbers on Tuesdays. There were a handful of whites entering through the whites-only turnstile. We went through the non-whites only. But once inside, whites and blacks walked along the same paths to see the same animals. Why do they bother putting the bloody signs up if black and white people end up mingling once inside? One boy snapped. Only God knows, the teacher said. I chuckled. I had encountered so many such contradictions in the white world that I no longer spent sleepless nights trying to make sense of them. To me and to many blacks, whites were a race peculiarly obsessed with creating contradictions that they and they alone could understand, if indeed they really could understand them in the strict sense of the word. Most students obeyed the principal's rules and walked like sheep when wolves around the crowd, but a few maverick friends and I deliberately strayed from the herd. While wandering about the zoo in awe of the caged animals and at the same time feeling caged ourselves, we came upon a baboon cage in front of which stood a cluster of white school children in preppy green and white uniforms. "Look!" cried one of them in Afrikaans as he saw us coming. From the startled look on his face, there was little doubt he was seeing black schoolboys for the first time in his life. The same could be said about the rest of his colleagues. "Here come the small baboons," yelped another white boy. "Let's turn back," someone in our group suggested. "Yes, why don't we?" a voice said in support. "We don't want to get into any trouble. Let's go see the lions over there instead." "No," 18-year-old Phineas, leader of our group, said in a defiant tone. "We pay too much money not to see everything in the zoo." "Yes," I gnashed my teeth. "Let's go. We have as much right as they to see the baboons. If they start anything, we'll respond in kind." "Are you mad?" another boy said. "Do you want to get expelled?" "Those who aren't cowards," Phineas said, "and will come with Johans and me over to this side." The group divided into two roughly equal factions. Phineas boldly led us toward the white boys in the baboon cage while the others slunk away. "Hey, look, little baboons are coming to be with the big baboons," shrieked one white boy, and his mates roared with laughter. So he's calling the group of black school children baboons. There was no adult among them except some distance away, in front of a cage filled with playful spider monkeys. A tall, wiry white man with silver-rimmed glasses stood bemused. He was wearing the same colors as the white boys. We disregarded his presence and jostled our way through the startled white boys to the front of the cage. One of the white boys cursed, "Bloody Kaffir," as I deliberately kicked him in the shin. "Kaffir is your mother," I said in Sangha. My friends heard me and roared with laughter. The white boys didn't know what to do. They couldn't understand a single word of Sangha, it seemed, yet we understood everything they were saying in Afrikaans. Pretending to be talking about baboons, we proceeded to compare the mothers, fathers, grandmothers, and grandfathers of the white boys to the various baboons in the cage. Sensing that we were talking about them, but not understanding what we were saying, the frustrated white boys strung one bloody Kaffir epithet after another. Their headmaster came and took them to the lion's cage. We too soon left, laughing and singing, and rejoined our group. We had triumphed over them. After lunch, we went over to the War Museum across from the zoo. We saw among the relics of the many wars, South Africa has been involved in relics from the Anglo-Boer War of 1899-1902, a colonial war so bitterly and closely fought that it left behind the English and the Afrikaners wounds of mutual suspicion and hatred so deep that true reconcilement has never taken place to this day. Okay. So you guys have 5 pages to read in chapter 33. Look at your packet.
Wait, do we have to read chapter 33 and 34 or just 33?
We just read 33. Is
Alright.
it only 32?
Yeah.
Okay, you have 33 and 34, sorry.
Well, yeah. Also, in the packet, it says based on part 3 of Capricorn.
I'm going to skip that part too. I'm seeing where 34 ends. That's what I thought. Yeah, chapter 34 is 3 pages, so you can total of 8 pages to read.
So much.
Alright, so we're focusing on Mathabane's character traits, okay, and how he develops his own character through an autobiography. So it says, in reading Mathabane's life story, you learn a great deal about the traits that form his character and the values that he believes in. Based on part 2, I mean. Kaffir Boy, identify 5 of these character traits and or values. Then explain how he demonstrates these traits and values through his actions, okay? So what's one of his character traits or values? What's one of his character traits? Okay, so dedication. Alright, so for number 1, you have the dedication. Now I want you to go find an example in the text of how he shows this dedication. I don't need quotes, I just need you to reference something in the book. Okay? So reference a scene or reference a moment in the book. Okay? That's his last name.
Oh, okay.
Any questions? Hey guys, I don't know if you guys saw the number of points associated with this packet. Okay? Do not turn this in.
Wait, what?
You need to turn this in. Next one. You have mandatory days. Did you guys all get Virtual Academy prom info? Anybody not gotten one of these? Brother, Brad, did you get one too? Anybody? Did you get one? Say that. Justin, did you get one?
Yeah.
Oh, are you going?
You have to.
Great quality.
You could.
Wait, I didn't wait. What is that?
Just go like, stay for like 30 minutes. It's $25.
Yeah,
What outline? Yeah. Remember sensitivities?
no.
We'll take you. We'll pick you up. By the way, you're good.
Whoa, bro, my hand is here. It feels so weird.
Can I do a quote if I want to? Can I do a quote if I want to? Okay. So would you rather me call you Mrs. Taylor?
I don't care. You either.
Really? Can I just call you Taylor?
Tell me. I don't. I
I don't know.
you call me big. I don't care.
I can call you Taylor?
I mean, I don't really care.
No?
It's not very formal for us, so.
Is it respectful?
I don't mind, but other teachers might.
You wouldn't want to go into Mr. Wolves and be like, what's up, boss?
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't mind, because I don't think there's a respect issue in my class, you know what I mean? But I think other teachers would not think it was a good thing to start. Yes. You have to go, Mom. Nicola! Don't call me Nicola. Well, you have to respond to this.
I have on my old office team thing. Okay, like, hey, Dad's Nicholas, come over here. And I was like, that's not how it works.
Stubborn.
So with respectful, is respectful to his members yeah.
I think so.
Definitely. I was just gonna say
Yeah,
I can't believe
Yeah.
I like so hard to I was like, so I would really love so
it's so much fun.
I just don't know what quality is.
Well, that's
I'm looking for a word that means like he makes his own decisions and like follows like
self-guiding, self-directing.
because he decides to say get out of the game.
That's just
Slides with there's a What's about
Hi, Ella.
I know, I totally any of them? Yeah. I've never been able to retake a test like ever, so I always was like, okay, whatever. Yeah.
I just take one.
Yeah, it's so bad. That's why I was having trouble because I never see. I still like I was just like this. Yeah, I don't go to like and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna learn as far as you. Like, yeah, too. So I That's also why. Yeah, and I said
No, it's because they made a big deal about it. Made a big deal about it when they started thinking about it. At the same time, it's like, why do I feel bad? Yeah, why do I feel bad? I was voicing it because I didn't
This one.
How much of them? Do you know Grand Result? Made by I was watching that stuff when I was
Moderate and then an easy one.
This is a mocha. That's tea.
No.
Don't think I got Taco Bell delivered? No. I wasn't at school this morning because
So, do you specify?
I literally don't know where Janessa is. I can't find her. She is not. Janessa.
She just left her class.
I know.
No, it's nothing compared to what I did. I don't want to go like fast.
Alright, I'm gonna do that before I have the stampede of children.
No crap hat.
Well, there's so many.
Alright.
What?
Yesterday. Are we talking yesterday or this week? During school. I would ask you the restroom just to like 100 spots.
Why?
Just for that.
Why? There's no point.
As you get stronger, then I had my LA class for an hour where I would just go so far in class, jazz class, and then another jazz class.
Yesterday?
And then I worked out after.
Oh, that was loud.
So,
No one saw that.
You just literally put it down.
Okay, did anyone see that?
Girl, where were you?
I just said you want to see the cabinet.
I literally just walked in here and you weren't there. Carson's trying to grab the water bottle. Oh, yeah, that's weird.
That was landed!
How big is the chair?
It's not really blue, but I've had.
I'm so close.
Carson, your family. Well, what do you have to do today? That's fine. Isn't it Thursday? Is it Wednesday? It's Thursday?
Oh.
Carson, you're gonna have to help me with this thing.
So close.
I already used it. You're not gonna cap it.
I'm going to throw that
Toss it higher.
out the window.
Please do.
Throw it higher.
Just 10 more tries.
Alright, hold on. I might just get that one go
Val, did you ever figure out how the heck you do the weird Kahoot thing? Yeah. Show me your ways.
Okay, you just need to download it on your phone.
You're down. On my phone?
Yeah, so you open it and it'll give you the game code and you log in on your phone.
Aww, that's cute. Carson, you're gonna get that thrown out the window.
That wasn't
No.
Jeff,
I
you
used to
have
have
a book.
Kahoot on my phone.
Steady book from over there.
Do you want this one?
Second!
I feel like you
You
placed.
go to his apartment and you know how like you won't find it. I'm done.
At least you stopped.
Yeah. But he's gonna.
How many attempts did that take?
It's not helpful.
Carson, are you wearing different socks?
Because I'm not. That just gets on. What's world downstairs?
Wait, we have a test?
What do you think? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no.
Nick, you missed it. I captured the water ball.
He did.
Want to see it again?
I'm not doing
No,
anything.
please don't. I'm begging you.
Wait, just one try. Just another one.
Another one.
Yeah, you're gonna be doing
One more.
Why do I keep thinking shows mistakes?
Reagan,
Because
you
they
like
look
McDonald's?
exactly like.
What?
Do you like McDonald's?
No.
Why do you like Taco Bell?
Because I needed food. Well, I like McDonald's chicken nuggets. Nothing about it.
No, I get triggered by like people who like bash on McDonald's and then they like eat at Taco Bell. And I'm
I
like,
don't
like there's no
that.
threat. There's like every single wrong at Taco Bell. Like,
Well, what?
I am going to dab so hard if
Sorry, I'm so strong.
No, my point is like at Taco Bell, like
You don't
like
eat girl's
everything
hair that has curlers. Yeah. You can rip one off, and that would hurt. It would start bleeding.
Nothing, just like everything.
I didn't rip anything off.
Her nails kind of ripped off.
I'm gonna dub so
I grabbed
hard
her
with
wrist.
that thing.
Oh, so you got her.
That was the worst part that I got.
Wait, what's
Yeah, lost track.
This is it.
one more?
Or you person would
Just chuck it.
You said one more.
You said one more. Just throw
Tired,
it into
one
the
part.
ceiling.
I think every time I go there, their French fries are always awful, and I always expect them to be so good, but they're actually so crappy.
You
You
can ask
need to
for
fix
fresh.
that.
You can just ask for fresh.
Chuck that into the ceiling.
That's
Oh my
McDonald's fries are wrong.
Yeah. They're soggy.
I think that's the only thing.
okay, they
No,
get
they're
soggy
fresh
when the
fries.
left
They're fresh fries.
When their fries
Yeah,
are
the
good,
French
they're
fries.
good. When they're bad, they're absolutely abhorrent.
Just ask for fresh fries, like we don't care.
Carson.
Okay.
Stop.
Yeah, you need to fix their
Boy!
Have you seen
Oh, I got
it?
so close.
It's like almost 2D.
Nick.
The baddies, I swear, they're shrinking by the day.
I'm so close.
No, you're not.
You please stop. It's not even a quarter pounder.
I'm waiting for our
It's like a quarter ounce pizza and I'm
patty for the steak. This has
Why would you stop?
Crispy Group returns! Triumphantly! They hit me so hard, Charles!
Isaiah will beat you.
Isaiah funny.
I never even did that to you. There's literally no reason at all. So funny.
I was here like this way.
Wow.
Dun, 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 dun. Speech!
Why? Wow, it's taking so long.
Did he hit you? Yeah. He hit me! Charles, you hit me so hard in the shoulder. No, me.
I hate you.
No, when he hit you, he also hit me.
Oh.
Isaiah, I have a crumble cream.
We're not in a relationship. No, we're not. Yeah, but some people still have that.
Oh, barely. You already cracked your phone. How did you already crack your phone? I wasn't cracking the phone yet. I mean, like, you cracked your phone. Seriously? It wasn't even cracked this morning.
Levi, you're actually going to pay for this shit.
Alright, sorry guys, I missed this room.
Totally broke this one.
So,
You missed out.
did I?
Okay, you missed the fucking night.
Carson was trying to put the water bottle on the like opposite side, and then he finally did it. So Reagan took it and threw it, but when Reagan threw it, it like immediately landed right side up.
Thank you.
You wanna see it?
doing that
Or you
for
not?
More accurate.
What do you have right now?
I don't know how you hit all two
Okay, are you going to advise me?
What?
Are you going to advise me?
You also need to help with it.
Well,
First minute
until
roll.
12:25.
There's also a possibility
This is
that
after, yeah,
So did both the cracks right there.
Can we operate this? Can we do a past practice?
It's like how much do windshields cost?
I just had to get my passenger window replaced, and it was $205. Because Matt locked my child in the car.
Oh, he's having the window place.
Wait, so Levi should get a job, right?
Yeah, you probably should get a job.
Levi's 14, I know.
Miss
Not yesterday,
Dudowski!
Tuesday.
You did the This Is America thing without me?
Somebody said to go get it.
That was me.
Yeah,
And why didn't you?
What?
because I had
What?
It's Sadowski.
Wait, what?
I love her tattoo.
Yeah, work with nicotine.
So the whole time I was like,
No, because
You could be a girl chef.
She was like, I don't want Carson in here with the tail.
yeah, so I was more like nervous the whole time that this poor parent was
you realize, like, people were
horrified.
up to me and they had their hands on top.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's literally just
I mean, you are.
No, I have to.
All right, boys.
Yeah.
So let's quiet down here.
Good idea.
What if I'm going to the room, or do you like want it?
Well, my dad was.
Okay, yeah, if you do, that should be good. What? Oh, thanks. I thought you said I wear that too. It's like wear one.
Wait, prom is March 28th, right?
April 6th.
Wait, prom is
Oh,
April
you
6th? Prom is on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Can you not give me one?
I actually need to.
You need to. Wait. You need to. Okay. I was at Friday to look at the cutest little like baby.
Okay, it's April 6th.
Like six.
Swimsuit?
No, like.
Not right.
Oh, you're right for prom.
Levi,
He's so
on
adorable.
Saturday.
He goes to bed at 7 though. That's the only thing. He just starts at 7.
You just need to get
Anything is
one
also
down.
blue.
No.
Put it in your clothes or put it like this.
Hey Isaiah, are you caught up on your reading?
Yeah. Pretty much. I haven't read
Oh, I'm still screencasting.
When are we starting on this?
After our argument.